Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kirby. Of course, this is a show dedicated to small nonprofits doing great big things, and we have a wonderful guest for you today. She is one of my dear friends, and she is the executive director. No, she's not. She's the president and CEO of CVIC up in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Coiya Tompkins, welcome to the official Do Good Better podcast.
Thank you. I feel excited to be here.
I'm
It's
very
about
excited.
time I get on this show. We've been friends for how long now?
I know. I feel bad. I feel bad. This was supposed to be earlier, but we've been, super busy. You've been, dove head first in as the sort of head of CVIC now. So if somebody's kind of scrolling through YouTube, they're scrolling to one of their favorite podcast sites, and they see your name, Coiya, and CVIC. They said, this is a pretty interesting show. I want to listen, but I don't know anything there is to know about CVIC. Why don't you give us kind of like the 5,000-foot view on what you do as an organization?
Sure. Well, we're basically here because we want to virtually end violence in 2 generations. That's really our why. It's pretty aggressive, and we know that, and we actually wouldn't have it any other way. So we've been around for about 40 years. We offer sort of a soup to nuts solution for violence. So we work on everything from prevention and intervention to education. So we do safety, healing, and education. All through, so we kind of catch people in their most deepest crisis, all the way through that healing stage, and then our goal is really to prevent this from ever happening. So where we've been focusing the last few years is really on that preventive side. So last year we actually educated over 18,000 people. So
unbelievable. Yeah. What part of that education do you do? What does that look like as part of preventative care, but like, how do you prevent some of this stuff? And what are some of the education pieces that you're out in the community talking about?
So one of the coolest programs we do everything. So we catch littles at kindergarten with of course, everything's age appropriate curriculum, all the way up through, we actually have a collegiate partner with the University of North Dakota. And then in addition to education for students, we also offer education in the community. And one of the coolest programs we launched last fall was a program called Green Dot. It's a bystander intervention program, and it's basically designed to help all of us understand that violence intervention is really all of our problem. We focus on the 3 Ds, which is divert, direct, or delegate. So if we see some violence starting to happen, or maybe that's a body language we're seeing in Target, maybe it's we're out at the bar when we can actually go back to the restaurants and we see, someone looking a little scared. There's a lot of different tools we can provide people to help them be a part of solving that violence before it ever begins. And it's a program we've been fortunate to have because of Gate City Bank. They helped us invest in that. It's a 6-hour training that we put people through. We currently have 26 facilitators of the Green Dot that are certified now. So that program is just one example of how we really try to approach things really innovatively, because we really believe to solve the violence problem, we need our neighbors' help to do so.
Part of our charm, if for a lack of a better term, in North Dakota is sort of everything will work itself out kind of mentality, or you kind of have an ostrich-like head in the sand attitude with a lot of things, and that's just part of our nature. It's none of our business is kind of how we, I think, are sort of programmed to think. And so you're asking folks to intervene or at least step in and ask some pretty heavy questions. How do we do that from culture-wise here in flyover country? And I think in the Midwest in general, it's just none of my business. Hey, whatever you do, you kind of thing.
Yeah.
Start even combating some of that as an attitude.
It's a great question. The beauty of the Green Dot program is it really it's depending on, regardless of what personality you might have or things like that, you can select the tools that work for you, and sometimes the situation might dictate that. But if it's looking particularly like it's going to get a little rough, you can delegate that. So you could have a store manager, or you could call the police, or you could get a friend to help you. So it doesn't always have to be that direct intervention. But what we're trying to do in our education is just get people more comfortable with seeing that they are part of the solution, and that we can't solve this if we're always putting the ostrich in the sand. So.
Right, right. Part of what I think one of my main concerns, I think, as I'm kind of chatting with organizations that deal with violence in the community, is a lot of these stay-at-home orders and these mandates to stay at home. It would be logical, I think, in my brain, that you're going to see a massive uptick in abuse and violence in the home. Are you seeing that, or is it not coming to light because they're at home? I mean, how does that work? Because I think I'm challenged with sort of this, and as a person who's glass half full most of the time kind of person, I'm challenged with thinking like, well, it can't get, it shouldn't be bad. But then you're kind of acknowledging reality of like, well, if they're trapped, somebody within a horrible relationship at home and they can't leave because we've got a global pandemic coming out, are you seeing an uptick in violence, and how are you combating this as a new reality to how your services are provided?
Well, it's something that's on our hearts all the time. NBC just did a huge comprehensive story really on what's happening nationwide. And while we aren't seeing that direct correlation in Grand Forks County, we know that history would tell us is that there's sort of that calm before the storm. And I'm thinking now that it's been interesting because as the city has opened up more, the needs are more severe. So there's going to be a higher need for support services, for housing and gas and groceries. And so what we know is just because the call volume's not directly surfacing, we know that it's very likely it's because they're not getting out. And so we're just always cognizant of how can we continue to let people know we're here through a variety of sources. So we've been doing everything we can with we've been putting flyers where things are still open: grocery stores, pharmacies, gas stations, social media posts, things like that. But yeah, we haven't seen it directly in Grand Forks County, but my colleagues throughout the state are seeing that.
Right. One of the things that I love about nonprofits is, regardless of their size or their scale or their scope, they always have gigantic goals, these big, hairy, audacious goals for the future of their organization. One of the things we love asking on the podcast is, what are your giant plans? What can we expect in the future, near future, for CVIC?
So I wish we were in my office in Grand Forks. So I'm at my home office now, but in my office, I have a countdown clock, similar to what you'd see in an Irish bar. Yes. So at CVIC, we don't count down to St. Patrick's Day, but we do count down to December 31st of 2025. That's when we believe, with all the effort we're putting forth, that we will see a decline in Grand Forks County in violence. What we're a little nervous about now, frankly, is that we're feeling a little bit behind the 8 ball because we lost a couple 10 weeks here and putting a dent in that. But that's our goal, is really to start to see that second generation violence to start to taper off. I mean, we really believe that every person deserves a safe and vibrant community, and that usually means no violence. So for us, that's our goal. And our biggest milestone right now is that 2025 point.
Sure. Oh, that's a great one. And again, I think this time where we're sort of at home and not being able to do the things we normally would do is going to spur, I think, momentum. I think it's going to spur creativity. And I think when things begin to open up, I think you're going to see this run on momentum building like you've never seen before. So I'm really excited about that. I've got faith in you. You're going to be just okay. What do you do? What does CVIC do differently than other organizations like yours trying to prevent or sort of taking action against violence in the community?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is we've been kind of shifting our thinking over the past few years. We set about this very aggressive plan with partners. So we don't do anything alone. We really believe that the way we're going to solve violence is through these partnerships. So about probably close to 10 years ago now, we set about pursuing a Safer Tomorrows roadmap as part of a child welfare initiative throughout the nation. And we partnered with the mayor, city police, court system, education, healthcare, to create this Safer Tomorrows roadmap. And that's where the tipping point, that was one of the outcomes that we targeted from that tipping point. So I would say one of the things we do differently is we're just not satisfied with the volume of people we're serving. We really want to be about catching that next generation to prevent this from ever happening. So one of the things that we're looking at now is we're really proud of the amount of people we reach on an annual basis, some 18,000 people last year. But I don't know that that's good enough to just say that we've reached a bunch of people. And we do measure to see if they've retained the curriculum we've given them. But I'd like to see, you know, how has the behavior changed? So maybe it's talking to educators or healthcare professionals. We also have some pretty audacious goals around that. You know, we think we're saving the healthcare system a lot of money every year. You know, is there a partnership somewhere in there? So it's all those kinds of things of just thinking a little more, pushing that envelope a little bit further to see, you know, what do I want my grandkids? How do I want Grand Forks County to look different for my grandkids than my kids? So
that's awesome. And with all the partnerships and with all the programming that you have out, what are some of the documented successes that you have had? Or can you point to things that you've rolled out and said, we nailed this one? So documented successes from CVIC. Got a couple for us?
Yeah, I think the most fun one, in addition to Green Dot, would be our domestic violence court that we launched a little over, it'll celebrate 2 years in August now. And it was a focused effort to try to catch offenders in that court process, where we mandate them to go through a 27-week offender treatment program. It's not group therapy, but it has some of the benefits of such. And we have them go through a 27-week mandatory course. And we are finding that the folks who go through this course are less likely to offend again. And in fact, we measure them 2 years after they complete the course. So they can't just attend it, they have to complete it. Or over 70% of them, we are not returning to the home for domestic violence. So that's a direct, measurable piece of data. And that's actually gone up since I got here. It was at 68% when I first got here. So we know it's working. We know they're more likely to stay connected. Where I would love to take it is looking at, you know, we kind of send them out the door after 27 weeks and hope they retain and remember and apply everything we taught them. I'd love to offer some additional therapy services for our offenders on the other side of this.
That sounds like a delightful thing. One of your donors should go and
pay
for in full. Dang it! I think that's great. One of the things that nonprofits do not like, and this is again part of our charm here in flyover country, but specifically in the nonprofit world, is we just don't like celebrating. We think it's bragging, and that's silly. So we use a time on the show to celebrate a big win or a medium win or a small win. It doesn't really matter. Celebrating a win is important. So what can we celebrate with you today for a big win or a win at CVIC?
Well, I would say I'm pretty excited about what we did for Giving Hearts Day. We more than doubled, almost tripled our goal. So that's pretty fun. And that was, again, when I talk about collaboration and partnerships, there was only 30 different businesses and individuals that came to the forefront of that. So that was something that hadn't been done here before. So even though I get nervous about virtual events and trying to continue to fundraise, I know that the community has responded for 40 years and they'll do it again. So
the only mistake you can make in fundraising right now is not fundraising and just sticking your head in the sand in that too. So kudos to you, kudos to the community. And I think that's really a testament to, again, like what you were talking about earlier with partnerships and how that actually is one of the direct things that makes you a better organization, is getting people on board, because we can't do it ourselves.
We can't do it alone.
Why try it as true? We love to end, as we do every week, but every show, with the idea of appreciation and gratitude. So are there a handful of people, or just one, that you want to point out and sort of give a big shout out of joy and thanks to, that's helped CVIC where it's being now or where it's going in the future? And how can we give them a big old bunch of kudos in the appreciation realm for
Well, I guess the biggest one would be the city of Grand Forks. They have agreed to help us with a really cool project. It's called Two Generation Guardians, the Peacemakers Who Changed the Face of Violence for Good. It's going to be a book that we're publishing this summer. We just believe that we never got to where we were without these guardians in our world. And we're going to be publishing a book about 40 of those guardians. Grand Forks, the city being one of them. The Mayor Brown has been with us for half our history. He and his staff have just been a huge part of our success, and they've agreed to help us with this project. And I dripped out a couple more small business owners that haven't quite said yes, but hopefully they will. So that's a book that's coming out. So if you want to learn about great people in North Dakota, Upper Midwest for that matter, you want to buy the book, and all proceeds will go back to CVIC.
Oh, what a cool thing. Well, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so collaborating with the city, so that means you've got 40 stories for 40 years, if I'm doing the math correctly in my brain. Yeah. Give me an example of somebody who would be featured in this book. We'll do a teaser name.
Oh my gosh.
Story. How about that? And I won't put you on the spot to give you the whole backstory, but what can we look forward to in a book like this, and how it directly correlates to kind of why CVIC exists as a deal? I that's fascinating.
So the coolest, it's hard to pick just one, of course, but if you want to get a teaser of her story, you can catch us on June 23rd at our virtual event, because she'll be speaking. But she's a past client of ours. Her name is Yvonne Griffin, who has gone through one of the most horrific, we hear a lot in our business about rough stuff. And she went through abuse as a youngster, and again as a teenager, and again as an adult. But is on the other side of it now. It's just a remarkable story. She's published a book and is working on her second book. And she's writing the book because she wants to prevent this from happening. And that's why I want to write this book about the Guardian, because she is one of those. But that's just one example. There's also partners featured in there. There are donors featured in there that have been a huge part of our success. So it's just fun. It's just been fun. You get to spend 30, 40 minutes with these guys on an interview. And then when I go to write it, it's like pure joy all over again. So
what a cool concept. When the book comes out, you can come back on the show and we'll talk about it. We'll pick out your favorite parts, and we'll spend an entire show talking about that, because that is a very cool concept.
Maybe we could even get a couple of Guardians to join us.
Look at that. You're already show running this thing, and that's why I love it. This is so great. Cool. So let's give us, how do we support CVIC? How do we get a hold of you? How do we got a sack full of money under our bed, and we've listened to the show now, and they said, now all of it's going to go to you and CVIC, Coiya. How do we get a hold of you? How do we donate? How can we help?
So you can check us out at cviconline.org or call 701-746-0405. And of course, my number is on the website too. You can reach out to me as well. We'd love to tell you more, give you a tour when we can get back in our building.
I love it. Well, we'll have all of those contact information, all the show notes within the page. So everybody can click on there and give you a boatload of money and participate and find out where your next event is, either virtually or in person. And then we will stick around, and then we will make sure this book gets released. We'll be back on the show. Coiya, thank you so much for being a guest of the official Do Good Better podcast. This was a blast. I'm so glad we got to do this. Finally. Kudos to you. Yes. Excellent. Well, thanks for being on the show. Good luck to all of your staff as you sort of transition to this new reality. And thank you for much what you do. It's the unsung heroes, I think, are really what's going to come out of this, especially you being on the front line of something that I don't think a lot of people talk about. They should, but what you do is wonderful. And so thank you very much for your help in making our community even more awesome.
Thank you so much.
Bye, friends.